Let me just tell you, I was a judge for over 20 years, and I had occasion to sentence a lot of offenders, many of them drug offenders. Many of them, were granted probation and kept coming back. I also had occasion to sentence many people and ask them, why on earth did you turn to drugs? You come from a good family, you have an education, you have everything you need, and yet they would still not be able to tell me, and it was a mystery to me. Well, now I've come to understand the dilemma that many of these people had. People don't turn to drugs just to have fun. They turn to drugs because they want to escape an awful existence that they have. Maybe depression, which young people suffer many times, maybe abuse, a broken home, lack of opportunities, problems at school, bad company. There are many reasons why people turn to drugs. But one thing I didn't understand, and I don't think we can learn it anywhere except with very good studies. We learned about, or at least I learned about, the effects of drugs on the brain. It was a mystery to me why, after people were given a chance to go about their lives, to obtain their liberty on probation or some other form of alternative to incarceration, why they still kept coming back to drugs. And I've heard about Jonathan Dover's case. Well, the more I think about it, the more I realize what I've learned, that when people use drugs, the effect on the brain, a particular section of the brain that controls our ability to control our emotions and be able to differentiate what's right, what's wrong, that part of the brain no longer functions, and people make mistakes and they can't control their actions, coupled with the fact that some drugs are highly addictive and they learn to be dependent on them to escape. And unless we identify that particular, you could call button that they have, unless we identify that and remove the source of the problem, that they will always turn to drugs. And so I think what we need to do, and the solution, is not more incarceration, because that doesn't solve anything. What we need to do is find that button and deal with it and remove the causes of what makes people turn to drug addiction. Why are people turning to drugs in this country? We are consuming more drugs than any other country on earth. We are consuming drugs at a fast rate. A lot of our prisons are full. As a matter of fact, 50% probably of the federal inmates were incarcerated because of a drug offense. That's not right. This country is better than that. I think we would spend our money better if we made an impact at the schools, if we identified the people that are at risk early on and we worked with them. We know that say no to drugs, that little slogan doesn't do it. If you are already addicted, if you're already having serious problems with depression or some other mental illness or emotional distress, you're not going to listen to someone shouting at a pep rally, say no to drugs. Someone needs to bring to the school curriculums a program that teaches the kids self-control, the consequences of their conduct. We don't have that in our schools. Our government is spending millions of dollars for incarceration when they could be spending that money for education. Okay. To teach our kids the way to stay clean and to understand the consequences of their actions. I know that I saw one particular presentation by this learned doctor who explained in very good detail what the drugs do to your brain. And they can show you pictures of holes in your brain and things like that. This is your brain on drugs. But really, it doesn't clearly explain what really happens. what happens is, besides the blocking out the unpleasant experiences and enhancing the pleasurable ones, drugs affect a part of your brain, I think the frontal something or other, I forget the medical term, but that is a part of your brain that controls your ability to know what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, to control your emotions. And so once that is gone, people that are using drugs, it's not their fault. They can't help themselves because their brain is not telling them, not sending them the correct impulses. And so when someone gets a chance on probation and they reoffend, it's not really their fault. It's the fault of the fact that they didn't get a good training program, good counseling. That would solve a lot of the problems so that people don't reoffend and our prison population is not impacted. Any kind of program that uses those concepts would be very helpful, because then they can exercise that self-control. Then they understand, and you can remove all that anger, all that depression by understanding the world and having a better, healthy approach to things. And yes, your program does that. We're taught to think the only way to prevent criminal behavior or drug usage is to incarcerate them. Well, our prisons are full of drugs anyway. It's not going to do it.
Right.
But I do know that generally, when people are addicted to drugs, without the proper help, they can't make it. If they don't have proper, drug courts are the rage right now, but they're very intense. They have to report every day initially. They have to take drug tests. And of course, they get a job. They start feeling good. They gain weight, while they're under all those sessions. And part of it also is the counseling sessions, and we go back to the character education, that they have to be able to understand that what they're doing is wrong, that it's not right, and that the consequences will be incarceration. If I did something wrong when I was a kid, and I had a lot of reinforcement from my parents, I had guilt feelings about what I had done. And I would see a lack of guilt feelings in many of these inmates, and I would get very bothered by it. But now I understand. It's because they had not had the proper peaceful solutions type of program. Their brain was not functioning normally, and so they could not exhibit that guilt, those guilt feelings about what they had done. And so remove the drug, counsel with them, and give them the tools to work with so that they can develop that guilt and make the right decisions and feel guilty if they don't. In today's society, mom and dad are both working. And so the kids rely mainly on the schools for that type of leadership, and they don't get it. They're not getting it. And so that is why, if they're neglected, if they're alone, if they have no protection either from gangs or anything else, they need to escape some way, and they escape by the use of drugs. They get attention by joining gangs, and they think that's a solution, but it's not. It gets them into more trouble. So what we have to do is replace that emptiness and fill it with love, compassion, and all the things that are needed when you're growing up.